Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Brandon Lester Fishing. Beautiful morning this morning, no wind. We're getting into early fall. It's kind of cool this morning, so supposed to have some cool weather on the way. Crappie been biting really good, man. I'm gonna do a video today that I've had the idea to do for a long time, and I've just kind of not done it because for whatever reason, forward-facing sonar is the most controversial subject there has ever been in fishing, and I get it. I get it. You know, I have my own opinions about whether or not it should be used in tournament fishing, but here's the deal. I've been in the industry for long enough to know now that it's out of the box. It's not going back in the box. So you can either say, okay, I'm not going to use forward-facing sonar, or you can get the technology and you can learn and you can let it help you catch a lot of fish. And that's what I've kind of chose to do. So I'm going to take you through everything about, I use Lowrance Active Target. If you're a live scope guy, then you can take this and apply it to live scope as well, because those two are very, very similar. I've been in the boat with both. They're both good products. I just choose to run Lowrance because I run all Lowrance on my boat. I like it. Works really good. So I'm going to take you guys through and show you my settings, how I find fish. We're going to catch a few fish. This is devoted to Lowrance Active Target or forward-facing sonar. So here it goes. Y'all enjoy. All right, so let's take a look at my setup first off. I run my Active Target 2 on an HDS Pro 16. I always tell people, get as big a unit as you can afford. When I made the jump from a 12 to a 16, it was pretty dang impressive. So, you know, if your budget only allows you a 9-inch screen, then that's fine. Buy that 9-inch or 7-inch or whatever and just learn it. The deal is, the more you look at it and the more you look at fish on that screen, you're going to figure out the size of the fish, the species, that kind of thing. But it makes it a lot easier to tell the species of fish and the size of fish the bigger the screen is, because it's about like having a bigger TV in your living room or a bigger computer screen. It's the same kind of deal with your electronics. And look, guys, I get it. These things are expensive, so I understand. But just buy as big a one as you can. Very first tip, right out of the gate, keep your dang screen clean. This is just some cleaner that Lowrance gives us. TH Marine makes a really good cleaner. It's called Wave Away. I keep some of it. You can use just whatever kind of cleaner you want. You know, you just want something that doesn't leave a lot of streaks. And I just wipe it off with a microfiber cloth. I keep a microfiber cloth in my back pocket while I'm fishing anyway. So my Active Target 2 transducer is mounted to the trolling motor shaft. This is a fish obsessed mount. The reason I run this fish obsessed mount, yes, you can run the factory mount that comes with Active Target 2. But this one is just a lot easier to adjust. I can either adjust this thing with just some simple clicks, and this thing is really well made. As you can see, I can run it out there, and I can run my transducer at a 90-degree angle like this if I want to. Or I find that right now am getting the best picture if I run it right down there, I guess parallel to the shaft, and running it 2 clicks up from down mode. That would be down mode. I'm just running it 2 clicks up from there on the fish obsessed mount. So that's a pretty cool mount. Getting all that dialed in is very important. Now let's talk about a turret as opposed to having it mounted to your trolling motor shaft, because if you've watched a lot of my past videos last year, I did use a live foot turret. And here's the deal. So I'm a bass fisherman. That's why I keep it on the trolling motor, because bass fishing, we're covering, more times than not, we're covering a lot of water. I may get out here and I may scan this whole thing out here looking for suspended bass out here chasing bait and stuff. Where when I'm crappie fishing, I'm going to pull right up over here. There's going to be a brush pile right out there. Y'all will see in just a second. And it'll be loaded with crappie, and I'm going to make that exact cast. That's where that turret comes into play, because if the wind's blowing, I can spot lock that trolling motor, and I've got that turret, and I've got those buttons on that live foot, and I can just sit there and use that turret and my trolling motor is away from the turret. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the reason why I'm not running the turret this year, I've had a lot of questions about that. I've just found that instead of buying another turret, instead of buying another active target 2 transducer and running 2 transducers, I'm just making it work on the trolling motor, and it's working just fine. The only thing is you have to understand in your mind that wherever the head of that trolling motor is facing, that's where that transducer is facing. That's where you're looking. So that's the setup right there. If you guys have any questions about anything, I'll try to be very responsive in the comments of this video and try to answer any questions. All right, so forward facing sonar, basic crash course right here. Right here is basically where the transducer is, right? And we're shooting to the bottom. This right here would be directly under the trolling motor. And we're shooting out right now. You see this number 50 right here? You got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. These numbers across the top are how far out. Like how far out away from the boat. You can see a school of yellow bass right there. These numbers right here on the side, this is how far down we're looking. So say if I'm fishing 40 feet of water, I may want to adjust that down range down to 45 feet. I want to keep it just below, I want to keep that range just below where I'm actually fishing. All right, so right here, we're actually sitting in about 15 feet of water. So I can keep it on, let's say, we'll just keep it on 20 feet for right now. Okay, so when I'm crappie fishing, when I'm fishing specific structure like this, I like to keep it on 50 feet forward. And like I said, I like to keep that bottom about 5 to 10 feet below where, and as a general rule, I don't ever go above 20 feet. I keep it, if I get up shallow looking around, I'll still keep it on 20 feet. It just starts looking weird if you go under 20 feet. We're coming up on a brush pile right here. Y'all see that brush pile out there at 40 feet? You can see the 2 limbs going up. You can see some fish suspended right over here. There actually looks to be a few crappie right down in here in the bottom of that brush pile, right in there. So it's going to take you some time to understand what you're seeing. You see how those fish are sitting real tight to the brush right there? You can kind of see them flashing in there. I'm going to say some of those are crappie, and we'll cast in there in a minute and find out. There's some more right in here, right in here. Y'all see that big wad of fish right out there at 40 feet? All right, the head of the trolling motor is facing right out there. That should be right about 40 feet. There goes my bait down. You'll see it? You can see the split shot. You can see my jig. And go just a little bit to the left. All right, I'm right there in them. I got one. Y'all see him coming in right there? There he is fighting. That's a pretty good sized crappie too. First one of the morning. He hit it on the fall when I dropped it right in that big bunch. That's a nice one. For this lake, that's a real nice one. Let me tilt my camera up here a little bit. It just kind of worked out that we found a school of crappie while I was explaining everything. But that's a good fish. Let's put him back. And I'm going to show y'all one more time. It's the perfect day to do this because it's not windy at all, and I can pretty much set perfectly still. So what you want to do, you want to make that cast, and if you don't immediately see your jig, then you want to feather that trolling motor and you want to keep that bait in your line of sight at all times. Okay, I'm right on those fish right now. They're all over it. They're chasing it. There's 2 or 3 of them chasing it. They're still all over it. One got it. There he comes. Well, I lost him. All right, we're gonna go right back in there, right in that school. Keep your foot on that trolling motor. Don't let your foot off the trolling motor. Keep your foot on the trolling motor. All right, we're back in them. Just keep that bait coming. Notice I'm not doing a bunch of jigging or anything fancy. Got one. There he comes in. You'll see him on the screen down there fighting. It's a good one too. Real good crappie. Oh yeah. Nice fish. Get up in here, buddy. I hope y'all are enjoying this, because this, like I said, I've had the idea to do this video for quite a while, and That's another darn good fish. It's just such a controversial subject that it's like you've got the people that like forward facing sonar are all about it, and then you've got the people that are all about not being. And it's drawing this line in the sand, and it don't have to be that way, guys. If you don't want to watch this video, I'm fine with that. Don't watch it. If you don't like forward facing sonar, that's fine. That's your opinion. We live in America. You do what you do. I'm gonna do what I do. We don't have to absolutely agree on every single thing. It's all good. But for the guys that are using it, I wanted to do this video to try to help some of you, and maybe it'll do just that. We got another one. I don't think this is a crappie. That's a yellow bass. And it'll take you a while to learn to judge your distance as well. Tilt that camera back down so maybe you can see what's going on. You can see my bait going down in there right now. He got it as soon as it got down there. See him coming in? I'm telling you guys, that 16-inch screen on that active target is absolute game changer, buddy. Absolute game changer. He came off right there at the boat. I'm not keeping him today anyway. I got the fun out of him. There he is. That's a good crappie right there too. There's some nice ones in that spot. A lot of good keeper fish to be had, that's for sure. Good one. I hope this is helping y'all. I'll run through my rig real quick. If you've watched my videos, you've seen this rig 100 times, but that's a 1/64 trout magnet head with a trout magnet, and they have torn that one all to pieces. I got to get me a new one, so we'll go ahead and rip it off. It's just a natural color. Any natural color trout magnet will work. 1/64 head, size 5 split shot, just up the line. I get a lot of questions about that split shot. Why don't you just go up to a 1/16 or a 1/8 ounce head? Because I'm trying to keep that profile down. I've got 4-pound vicious 100% fluorocarbon leader, about a 6-foot leader tied with a double uni knot. Then I have 7-pound vicious panfish braid, 2500 size Daiwa reel, and a 7'2" light mustad detector rod. I'll link the rod, reel, line, bait. I'll link everything in the description, and I'll link my electronic setup as well. Now, one thing you'll notice, and one of the best parts about having this technology, is the fact that after you catch 3 or 4 crappie out of one little place, you'll notice those fish, that school will actually move, and they'll go set up on a different little spot. So you might be sitting here, like I've done caught 4 or 5 out of this one little top right here. In a minute, those fish may move and go set up on a different little spot. And I can tell that now, where before I never would have known that. I would have had to cast around. It may take me 30 or 45 minutes. That's a good crappie right there. It may take me 30 or 45 minutes to relocate that school of crappie. So that's another really good thing about having active target, is the fact that another good keeper, the fact that you can relocate that school so quickly. I mean, this box is giving you information. It's how you process that information is the whole key to the whole deal. Now notice how I'm not taking my foot off of that trolling motor. I'm gonna feather that trolling motor the whole time. If it was windy out here, I'd have to stay on that trolling motor the whole time. And that's probably the hardest part of this whole deal, is keeping your bait in frame all the time. There's another fish. I mean, when you get everything firing on all cylinders and the fish are cooperating, you've got the right bait, it's just cast after cast. I mean, there's nothing bad to say about it. There ain't nothing wrong with catching fish. It's what we're all out here to do, you know. I've been using this technology for quite a few years now, and I've used it a lot for crappie fishing. I've used it a lot for bass fishing. I've learned a whole lot about fish activity with it. And honestly, it's been very intriguing to me to learn all these little nuances and all these little things that crappie do and bass do that we never knew. We never knew. Like, I always thought if you ever got hung up in a brush pile and you jerked and pulled on that brush pile and broke your jig off, that you probably just ruined that hole. That's not the case. Those crappie don't care. They'll sit right down there while you're jerking and pulling on that brush pile. They may scatter for just a second and they'll go right back in there. And then there's times where you may roll up and catch 1 or 2 crappie out of a spot and they're gone. That whole school will just up and leave, and you can see them. You can see them just take off swimming. It's the craziest thing. I've learned a lot about fish behavior, and that's probably the thing that I've enjoyed the most about having this technology. Telling the difference in fish species is one of the absolute hardest parts of this whole deal. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, if you're new to forward facing sonar, you've got about at least a 1-year learning curve ahead of you. It's something that takes a lot of time. You can watch this video 1,000 times, but until you get out on the water and try to apply it yourself, it's not gonna register completely in your mind. I can give you a lot of good tips along the way, but you're gonna have to get out and learn it on your own, and you guys will see what I'm talking about when you get out and start playing with it. I'd say it took me a full year of having this and using it before I got to where I was even the least bit proficient with it. And I'm still learning every single time I go. I'm not saying I know everything by any means, because I certainly do not. But as far as telling fish species, that's just something that's going to come with time. There's no way I can sit here in a 15 or 20 minute video and tell you, hey, this is what crappie look like, hey, this is what bass look like, hey, this is what this looks like, this is what that looks like. I can't do that. Me or anybody else can't do that. Another pretty good one. Biggest thing I want you guys to take away from this video. So many people, I'll see them, they'll point their trolling motor like that, they'll make the cast, and then they start looking for their jig. Now, it just so happens that I casted in the cone, but what if I miss that cone? That cone is not that wide, just making a 30 or 40 foot cast. Get your foot, make that cast and get that foot back on that trolling motor and look for your jig. Use the trolling motor to find your jig. Make the cast and then find your bait. Don't set your trolling motor in place and try to cast in the cone. That's the wrong way to go about it. Go ahead and make the cast, and try to make the cast where the trolling motor is facing. And just keep in mind that your boat is constantly adrift. When you're out here, unless you have an anchor out or something like that, your boat is constantly moving just a little bit, and just that little bit of movement can throw you off, and your bait can wind up outside the cone of where your transducer's looking. Most of the time when people tell me I can't see my bait, that's the problem. They're not using the trolling motor to find their bait. There's no way you should have any problem, especially with it set like this at 50 feet forward. You should have no problem. Even if you just throw a 1/32 ounce jig head out there, you should be able to watch that bait go all the way to the bottom, no problem. You should be able to see it pretty much all the time. So just bear that in mind, and I will tell you, it makes it a whole lot easier doing this right here if you'll just put your leaning post up here. You can see I've got my Phoenix butt seat up here, and I've got it jacked all the way up, and when I'm fishing, I'm just leaning back on that seat, and I've got one foot on that trolling motor, and I'm just kind of scanning around, and if I see something that looks good, I'll sit still and fish it. If I don't, I'll keep moving until I find me another brush pile. All right, guys, so let's talk about settings real quick. I showed you guys the ranges here and explained why I do what range. Let's go more in depth on settings here. So I didn't mean to hit that. Let's go to menu. Contrast, I've got it set on 89% right now. Take it out of auto. You're going to want to stay between about 84 and 92, right in that range is what works best for me, depending on water clarity. Noise rejection, I keep it off. You can run it on low if you got a bunch of trash and stuff in the water, but if I can get by with it, I like it off. I don't want to miss anything. All that does is just cleans up your picture just a little bit. You can see I'll turn it to low. See how it just cleaned it up a little? But I don't like to miss anything, so I keep it off. More options. Color palette's pretty important, but it's really personal preference. I know people that like that palette number 1. I know a lot of guys that like palette number 6. You got a lot of different options. Even the black and white palette is pretty dang good, especially in real low light situations. For me, palette number 3 is the one I stick with 95% of the time. I run stable view on, and that's pretty much all there is to setting up a Lowrance active target. Garmin has a little bit more fine tuning settings that you can do, but like I said, that's the way I set mine up. Nothing fancy. I feel like it's a pretty basic setup that I run, and next year on the Elite Series I'm going to run this same exact setup. So it works for me. It'll work for you guys too. I know it will. All right, y'all, I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope you learned a little something. I appreciate you watching it. Like I said, this is one I've had this video in my mind of doing for a long time, but unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you've realized there's a ton of controversy that surrounds this whole forward-facing sonar thing, and a lot of it I really don't get it. Like, I'm to the point where, well, on the bass fishing side of things, I'm like, just give me the rules and let me go fishing. You know, I'm tired of worrying about it. I'm tired of thinking about it. I'm proficient with it. I can use it. I've learned to adapt to it. You know, as far as my opinion on the whole thing, I'm not even going to get into it. I don't want to start that argument, and I don't want to feed into that controversy and that negativity, to be 100% honest with you. Use this technology if you want to. I hope this taught you something, because it can teach you more about fishing than you could learn in an absolute lifetime. I promise you that, guys. And I hope that this taught you a little something. Like I said, leave a comment down in the comments if you have a question. I'll try my best to answer them. Just if you have a Lowrance question, forward-facing sonar question, I'll try my very best to answer them. Appreciate you watching. Stay tuned for the next one. I'll see you next time right here. Brandon Lester Fishing.